Hi everyone, this is Hannah from Strucsoft Solutions bringing you this week's webinar. Today we're going to talk about a floor tool. So we're going to be in the the MWF floor module. We're going to be talking about the modular tools, which are located here, modular. So these are the tools that we're going to be talking about. So these modular tools can be used for floors, ceilings, and roofs. So the bullet points for today are going to be how to create Revit groups, because we're going to be needing Revit groups to be able to use these modular tools right here. Also, we're going to discuss best practices for framing Revit groups. We're going to talk about the copy member tool, which is right here. There's two of them. And then there's the match properties tool over here. There's two of them as well. We're going to also discuss Model Group Subassembly Manager. And then we're going to talk about applications of this tool for floors, ceilings, and roofs. We will also discuss a few recommendations when you're using other tools with the modular tool. So let's jump into our 3D model. So I have a very simple model prepared, nothing fancy. It's just a little unit called Unit A, and this is a Revit group. Before we start, let's talk about the meaning of modular. So what does the word module mean? The word module means a repetition of something, of anything, actually. It's a repetition of a design or a pattern. In the construction world or the architectural world, it could be, for example, an apartment. It could be a bathroom, a kitchen, a unit that's being repeated within a building, or it could be a building itself. Perhaps there's a house that is being repeated in a neighborhood. So basically, it's a repetition. In Revit terms, this would be a group, just like what we have over here, and it's being repeated. Over here, you'll see that it's mirrored. Here, it's been rotated, and here, it's another one, but you'll notice every time I click on any one of these, it's really the same group. So to make life easier, if you needed to use a repeated pattern, you can use Revit groups. So this helps you when you want to make a change. It applies to everything. Let's actually try it. So if I double click over here, I can make a change to this model. Let's say I do this and maybe I'm just making random changes and I hit finish. You'll notice that the change has been applied everywhere to all the Revit groups. Actually, I just want to extend this here. Okay. That's it. So I just wanted to show you how when you make a change to one group, it's the same group. It's Unit A. So it's going to be the same group is going to change everywhere in your project, making life much easier or making changes much easier. I'm going to Control Z and just undo what I did here and hit cancel. And yes, I am sure. And let's go back to the beginning. Okay. So I've already pre-created this group here, which is called Unit A. And let's actually make one from scratch. I'm just going to bring this unit over here. And you'll notice when I click on it, it's showing this kind of invisible cube over here just to show or indicate that this is a group. I'm going to actually ungroup it by using the tools over here. So I've shown you how we can edit group, but actually let's ungroup it. So I've just ungrouped this group. So it is no longer Unit A. This is still Unit A. This is no longer Unit A. Let's say I want to make another unit. So I'm going to change some dimensions over here. And now to make a group, what I have to do is make a selection. So a mass selection like this. Just going to make sure that I grabbed everything. And now to make a group, I'm going to use this tool over here. So we're still talking Revit. I'm going to make a Revit group by using Create Group or GP. I can click GP on my keyboard and this will make a group. Be careful, guys. We're not talking about assemblies. So assemblies are not covered for today. You can create an assembly with Revit, but you're not going to be able to use these tools, these MWF tools with assemblies. So I'm just going to create a group and I'm going to call this Unit B. And that's really it. It's very, very simple. So this is how you would create a Revit group. This is still unit A. These are all still unit A. And now I can use unit B. I can copy it, paste it, rotate it, mirror it. So I can use all these tools over here and make changes to the group by double clicking and etc. To find these groups that I just created, let's say I want to switch this one with another group, I can simply do this. So I can switch this from unit B to unit A. These are other groups that I had pre-created for this webinar. So you can switch from over here, okay? So that's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is you can find these groups over here. If you scroll in your project browser, and if you go to groups where it says groups, you'll find that there's two kinds. There's a detail group that is not covered in today's, it's not part of today's topics. But here under model, you'll find the groups that we have created. And if you want, you can also do this. So you can drag and drop a group over here. I'm just going to delete them, but you can also do this. So you can drag them and drop them, and you just bring them over to where you're working. That's pretty much it with regards to the quick Revit introduction. So we talked about creating Revit groups. Now let's talk about how we would frame these groups, okay? You'll notice over here, I have already cheated. I've created some wall framing. We're not going to be covering wall framing for today for the modular tool, but I will show you where to find them. So if you switch to the wall module, these tools are going to be found here in Modular. These are the tools you would use for groups, for Revit groups, to model framing for your walls, which we are not covering today. There is a really good webinar on this, guys. I really highly recommend that you check out that webinar. For today, I'm just going to focus on floors, ceilings, and roofs. So I will switch to floor module, and these are the tools that we're going to use for Modular. But before, we actually have to frame our project. So how do we frame our floors, ceilings? I don't have a roof here, but let's say our roofs in a group, in a Revit group. So there's two techniques. There's one technique that I actually highly recommend and I really like, and there's a technique that I don't like very much, but I'm going to show you how. So first of all, if I make a selection like this, you'll notice that I'm selecting everything in this group. So if I wanted to actually go here and create something, I just want to show you what's going to happen. Okay, let's test this. Let's say I want to create something with light gauge. If I hit frame it now, I just want to show you what happens. Okay, so it did frame everything, but it used the same template everywhere. Okay, so that's not what I'm going to do for today. I would like to use different templates. So I'm going to Control Z and just cancel everything I did. The other thing you could do is you can hover and you can select one or more Revit floors at the same time. So here, if I wanted to just frame this one, I just select this one, but let's say I want to frame both of them. So I would have to hover over the second one, use Tab on my keyboard, Control to add them, and now I've selected the floors. And now I can do this. I can hit Create. Let's use wood. And I'm going to click Frame It Now and hit Create. So that would be another method. So I would be picking one template at a time. This is also not my favorite method. I'm going to show you what I prefer. So I'm going to Control Z and I just canceled what I did. What we highly recommend that you do is to create template maps. So I've already done that. So I'm just going to click here on template map. And the way that template maps would normally work, I've already created one here. So when I click on it, you'll notice here that this is going to populate with the information that I have created. And when you use a template map, what you're actually doing is matching. You're basically matching floor types with MWF templates with regards to floors, ceilings, and roofs. We have multiple webinars with regards to template maps and many tech tips on the issue, on this topic. I've already pre-created this, but just really quick, if you wanted to create something new, you would have to give it a name, hit OK, and then now I have a new template map called test. And to start populating this, I have to click here on the plus sign, and then you can select what you're adding. You have to tick the one that you're populating, but I'm just going to hit cancel. I'm going to actually delete test because I'm just going to be using this one here, which is called webinar. So I've already pre-created some templates over here. And basically I would select the type. Here it's a ceiling type. And a template, I would match an MWF template. I can hit frame it now. So here, if I tick frame it now, it's going to frame it right away. If I don't, it's not going to frame it right away. I'll show you this later, but I just have to make sure that this is highlighted in blue, and I'm going to hit OK. So I'm going to be using the template map that we just saw, and I'm going to be framing this unit over here. Okay. This already has walls. And what I'm going to do is use Quick Create. Quick Create is used in conjunction with the template map that we just saw. So I'm just going to make a selection, just going to select this unit, and I'm just going to hit Quick Create. And this is going to take a few minutes or a few seconds, depending on the size of your project. And basically what the software is doing is it's matching. It's matching floor types or ceiling types with templates, just like we told it to. And the time frame will vary. It's going to depend on how big your project is, how many panels you're creating at the same time, and also it's going to depend on your device, the device that you're using. Okay, I just want to show you this very common warning message that you sometimes will see while you're working with the floor module. Don't worry when you see this message. All it's saying is that there are identical instances in the same place. I just want to show you what Revit is talking about. So Revit is basically talking about this guy here. So this is a node. It's a floor node. This is created when you create a floor, an MWF floor. If I click here on expand, and if I go to the warning and hit the plus sign, it's basically saying that there's a generic model that is located in the same place as another generic model. So it's in the same place. So in the world of Revit, Revit would give you a warning. This should not exist in the same place, but it's totally normal to have MWF nodes in the same location. That is totally fine. So I'm just going to hit OK. It just means that because we have two different floors side by side, there's a node there or a duplication of two nodes in the same place. That is totally OK. So don't worry if you see that message. Okay, so here we're done. We've created framing for multiple elements at the same time. We've created framing for floors and for ceilings, and you'll notice here the ceiling does have sheathing. I didn't add sheathing to the floors, but if I just show you here what happened, I did use different templates for each one, for each floor type. I used the same template for the ceiling, and this has been framed very nicely, and it's done. Okay, so this covers how we would frame a Revit group. Now let's talk about the copy members group, okay? So now we're going to be applying the framing that we have over here in this for this unit that has been framed to the rest of the units that are all entitled Unit A. They're all named Unit A. So we're going to apply the changes to this unit. I'm actually just going to add a Unit B here just to show that nothing's going to happen to Unit B when I frame Unit A, okay? So to start framing, basically you could do this. You can make a mass selection, and it's totally okay to quick create. You can do this actually. There's really no rule that says you have to use the modular tool. However, this does make life much easier. It's honestly, it's one of the tools that is a recommended tool. You don't have to use it. You can have a very happy life using Quick Create, but I'm going to show you the features for the modular tool and why this is very useful. Okay, so let's go ahead and start by using the copy members on all identical groups. So this is the option where you would frame a unit, and then you're going to copy the framing of that unit from one Revit group to all identical groups. So you're making the software search for you. So instead of having to make a selection like this, the software is just going to locate it and it's going to frame it for you. So it makes it much easier. So let's make a selection. We're going to select the parent group. We call it a parent group. And then we're going to use the tool and hit copy members on all identical groups. And now what it's doing, it's copying members from unit A and it's searching for all unit A's in your project. And it's going to be applying the same framing that we created for that unit on all other units. This is just going to take a few minutes or a few seconds. Okay, so the software is done. It has framed these units. So anything in my project was located and found by the software, and it has applied the framing. Just remember that I didn't use the tool for walls. If I wanted to frame the walls, I'm going to need to switch back to the wall module, and I'm going to need to use these tools over here. Okay, let's go back. So that's really the basic way where you would want to copy members on all identical groups. But now there's so much more that we can do. You can also match properties on all identical groups. So let's talk about why you might want to do that. Let's talk about changes. So let's say I'm going to make a change to one of these units. The change could be anything. The change could be that I could maybe go into the properties. Let's go to the properties of this panel. So I'm going to make a selection. By the way, to do that, I'm going to hover over the group, use Tab on my keyboard, select, and then I'm going to go to the properties of this panel, just like this, and I'm going to make changes to this panel. Okay, the changes can be anything. I'm going to maybe change the joist spacing. So let's actually make this, I'm going to make this 3 feet. Okay, so I changed the spacing to 36 inches or 3 feet. Let's try something else. Let's double. So I'm going to double. I'm going to use a different family or maybe the same one. I'm using a Howick. Let me use a Howick here as well. Okay, so I'm using the same one. I just doubled it. So I'm going to hit OK, and that's it. I just did like a random change. And now let's say that I want to match all the changes that I've done here in this unit to all the other units in my project. To do this, what I have to do is make a selection. I would select a unit, and then I would go to the modular tool, and then I would use match properties on all identical groups. So this makes life easier because I don't have to actually manually go and look for the units. I don't have to delete them and restart all over again. The changes that I made are going to be applied to all the units automatically by the software. Okay, so it's done. It has applied the changes that we created. So you'll notice it added the spacing and it also added the double members that I have done, and it also rotated. So this is just an example of how you would copy on all identical members or match on all identical groups. But there are more options over here. So let's say that I want to Let's create a few more units, actually. Let's do this. Let's go to a side view, because this can also be applied, or I only applied the units horizontally, but this I can also make copies vertically. So let's do this. I can either use the copy tool and copy them from one point to the other, or I can also do this. I can Control C on my keyboard, and let's make this like a multi-level unit, or a building with multiple apartments, for example. So Control C on my keyboard, and then I can paste. So paste from clipboard, align to selected levels. Let's apply this to level 2 and the roof, and okay. Okay, and now I've just added them here to the top. So let's say, for example, I want to frame or apply the framing that I did to this unit, but I don't want to apply it to this unit. Just remember that the first tool that we talked about, this one, is going to copy members on all identical groups. So it's just going to basically automatically frame everything. But let's say that's not what I want. In this case, I can use this. So copy members from group, but this works like in an opposite way. This tool, you have to select the unit that you want to frame first, and then you would go to the tool, select copy members from group, because you have to select the one that is not framed, and then you select the tool, and then you have to select group to copy from. When in doubt and you don't remember what the next step is, always look at the bottom left over here. It's saying select group to copy from. So let's say I want to copy from this one because I made a change, for example, to this one. So I'll pick this. And then the tool is going to apply the framing from that unit that I just selected to the unit that I selected first. Okay, so you'll notice that it applied the framing to this unit up here, but it didn't apply the framing to this unit up here. So that's another thing. Let's talk about this one, match properties from group. Okay, so in this case, you want to match properties just to specific groups. Let's make a change here. Let's say that I want to make a change over here. So let's go and we select one member and go to properties. And let's make a change to the joist. Let's triple the joist. So this I'm using just SSMA for member B and member C. So it's the same one. So I tripled it. And let's make the spacing 2 feet. And then okay. And then okay. So let's say this is a case where I wanted to make a change to this panel over here, and I wanted to apply this change to only 1 or 2 units, okay? So you'll notice it followed the changes that I asked, it tripled this and it changed the spacing. So now what I have to do is, let's say I want to apply the change to this one and to this one. So maybe I'll make, first let's start with this one. So I'll make a selection. So I'll select the one that I want to change. I'll go to the modular tool, and then I will match properties from group. So I'll hit the tool, and then I'll select the one that I want to match it to. Okay, and let's say we want to, well, first of all, let's check it. It followed the changes that I asked, which can be found here. So it worked, and nothing happened over here. But let's say I want to apply this change to, let's say, this one and this one. I just want to test it and show you what happens. So I would select match properties from group. It's not going to let me. Okay, so it only has to be one model group at a time to be able to use this tool. Okay, so just keep that in mind. And we've covered all of these, and now let's talk about this one, okay? Let me delete this, and let's go over here. Okay, let's say that in this unit over here, I want to make a subassembly. Let's select Model Group Subassembly Manager. Okay, you're going to get this empty user interface. There's nothing there. What you have to do is, well, if you select New, nothing's going to happen. You actually have to start by typing in a name. So let's call this anything you like. We can call it, for example, Test 1, okay? And then you would click New. Must be letters and numbers. Okay. New? Okay. So it didn't accept the space. So now what I can do is add or remove. I can also rename, I can delete, I can make new ones. So when I create one, I can hit add, and then I can start to add members to my subassembly. So let's say I want to add this member and this member and this member to my assembly, to my subassembly. And when I'm done, I can hit finish. Okay, so that's one. And now it's going to show me that in test 1, we have these members. Let's make a new one. Let's call it test 2, new. It doesn't have anything. And let's add this one, and this one. Okay. And let's hit finish. So now test 1 has these, test 2 have these. I can add or remove. I can rename or delete, but that's it. I'm going to hit OK. I just want to show you what this does. So I'm going to pick one of the members that I have just added as a subassembly. And you'll notice here in the properties, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll notice that here there's a BIMSF model group. There's a label for this, and this has been populated. If I try to select something else, there's nothing here because I didn't add this to a subassembly. But here, I've added this to a subassembly, and this is populated here with test 2. So this is also something useful that can be used for your schedules and can be useful for your shop drawings as well. Okay? And this pretty much covers the tools that are located here in the modular menu. Let's go back to the cover page. So we're done here. Now we're going to talk about some applications or the application of this tool for floors, ceilings, and roofs. So I'm just going to jump into another view in our 3D views. Okay. So here, I want to talk to you about a few things. In this group, it's just called Group 1. What I have here is I have a floor, I have a ceiling, I have a roof, just a basic flat roof, and I have some lines. So I just want to hover here and show you that these are basic Revit lines. Okay, so let's experiment something and let's frame all of these. We're going to frame all of these Revit elements using the floor modules in this group. So basically, if you've already used MWF before, and as you've seen in the beginning of our presentation, we're using the floor module, and the floor module will cover floors, ceilings, roofs, and lines. Okay, so here, actually, what you could do is use create, but if you use create, just be careful. It's going to frame everything with the same template, and this is not what we want. What we're going to do is actually use the template map because I want to frame everything. But let's go back here to the template map. You'll notice that we don't have the option to make a template for lines. So just keep that in mind. And I just want to highlight that I didn't hit frame it now for this one, which is a roof. Okay, I'm going to just hit OK. And by the way, I just want to highlight something else. I'm using a wall truss for this. I just want to experiment and see if a wall truss will work over here. So I'm just going to hit OK. And we're going to make a selection for the whole group. and we're going to use quick create. Okay, so here, because I'm framing a roof, it's going to ask me this question. You'll notice that it framed these two, and now it's going to ask me a question over here. This is always a question that MWF will ask you when it's framing a roof, which is, do you want to use the top face or the bottom face? I'm going to use the bottom face, which is over here at the bottom, and I'm going to hit OK. Okay, and because I didn't select frame it now, it didn't frame it. So I'm just going to have to do this here and regenerate. Okay, so it's going to ask me what I want to name it. I'm just going to auto rename them. Okay, so we've created this this floor system. You'll notice that nothing happened over here because we don't have a template map for this. But let's actually try something. I'm going to hover over, hit tab once, and then hit tab twice, make a selection, and I'm going to actually use create. Okay, and let's just use light gauge, frame it now, and let's keep it simple. Okay, you're gonna get this error. So what actually happened, changes to the group are allowed only in group edit mode. So it doesn't actually accept the lines being framed within a group. So it's gonna ask you to ungroup it. Okay, so this is what I wanted to show you. So I'm just gonna hit cancel. And so keep in mind that there is a limitation with this tool with regards to lines. So it's not going to be able to frame it unless you remove these lines from the group. So if you're using lines, modular tools are not going to be an option, okay? But let's actually, I would like to show you what's going to happen. I just want to see if we can use, here you'll notice that we have assemblies because we created a wall truss. Okay, so let's try this. So now we can try the tool. We'll make a selection, go to modular, copy members on all identical groups. Okay. So here what happened is we just have to regenerate. It did apply the panel, but it didn't show the framing. This could happen. It's okay. Okay. But it did actually allow the wall framing to be copied from one group to another, but just keep in mind the limitation with regards to lines. So that's one thing I wanted to talk to you about. There's also something else that I've experimented with a little bit for this webinar, which is the floor cutter tool. So over here we have a group. This group only has a floor. It's called group 2, and I just want to show you that it only has a floor. Okay, so let's say that you wanted to cut this floor. So here it's very important to talk to you about some of, like, I'm going to talk to you about other features as well, but let's talk about the floor cutter tool in particular. Let's try something. So if I select this group over here, and then actually let's make a mass selection like this. And let's try to use floor cutter. It's not going to let me, okay? So it doesn't see that I've selected a floor. Let's try something else. Let's do this. So I'm going to use tab to make a selection, control on my keyboard. So I'm pressing control to select these lines. And if I try again to use floor cutter, okay, it's gonna work. However, just keep in mind something really important with this tool. First of all, when you use this tool, you're actually creating new floors. So it's going to ask you what floor type you want to make, which floor types do you want to use. So I'm just going to keep the same one. There's the option of deleting the original floor or keeping it, because there's the original floor. I want to cut it up in 4 parts using these lines. So I actually want to try to delete original floor. I'm going to hit OK. Okay, so this is very important. The tool did work. right? So it did cut it up. However, nothing happened to the group. So the group was unchanged. So keep in mind that even if you use the floor cutter tool, you're creating new floors. So you would actually have to do this. You would have to go to the original group and add them here. And by the way, because I selected delete original floor, the group is not there. Look, so there's no group. I just want to Control Z and show you what happens if I try this again. And tab, no, actually just Control and Control, floor cutter, and I'm not going to delete original floor. I'm going to hit OK. So the group is still there because I didn't delete it, but nothing happened. Okay, so what you would actually have to do is this. You would have to double click on the original one that you cut. You have to delete the original. You have to add and then finish. Okay, so this is the correct way to use this tool. So now this change has been applied. So you can now go ahead and either use create or quick create. Let's quick create it. Okay. Okay, same error. That's okay. It's just about the node. No problem. Okay. And I'm just going to do this. Okay, so this has been applied. The panel, that all the panels have been created. And now I can do this. I can use copy members on all identical groups. Okay. And it looks like I just have to regenerate. Okay, and that's it. So it does work, guys, but just be careful when you're using the floor cutter tool. There's a specific way that you can use it, okay? Okay, so it's also very important to talk to you about floor openings. So over here in this example, I have a floor in this model group, and you'll notice that I have two openings. One of them was created with a shaft, and the other one was created with, okay, I guess I can't edit boundary now, but I had created this floor. Actually, let me show you with edit boundary, just like this. So a loop inside a loop. So these are the two techniques to create a floor opening and apply it in MWF. And finish. So let's go ahead and frame this. So I'm just going to hit create. I'm going to use light gauge, frame it now, and create. Okay. So over here, we created a floor panel and we created two openings. I'm going to actually just go ahead and apply the panel over here on the other group. Just going to copy members on all identical groups. And I'm going to regenerate. Sorry, I'm just going to regenerate. Okay, let's take a look at the top view. So what happened is that it applied the template, okay? It applied the template, which was a light gauge template. It has a particular setting for the openings, and it applied it. However, let's talk about changing the opening marker. So this, if you're already aware, this is a generic model. It's an opening marker. This controls how your opening behaves. You can also control it from the panel itself, but I'm just going to select the opening marker, and I'm going to hit Properties. And when I hit Properties, when I have this selected, it's going to open a different menu, which is the Opening Types Manager. So the opening type that we're using here is the default, which is joist supported. I'm going to switch it from joist supported to rim supported. So I'm going to select rim supported, hit select. Okay, nothing's going to happen until I regenerate. So I'm just going to hit tab on my keyboard and regenerate this panel. Okay, so here what happened is you'll notice that this opening is now different than this opening. Here I was using the default and here I'm using rim supported. So now this opening looks different. I just want to show you that if you want to apply to this change over here, I just want to show you what's going to happen. So let's say we're going to use match properties on all identical groups. I just want to see if this will work. Okay, so it's not going to work. Why? Because this is an independent marker. It is outside the group. And so this one right here, okay, because it's outside the group, it hasn't changed automatically. Okay, so you would actually have to make this change manually. So over here, I'm going to have to do that step again. So I'm going to select this one, go to properties. Okay, and then I have to switch it to rim supported, select, and then I have to regenerate. Okay, let's try something else. Let's go here. Let's go to properties. Let's go to general, position, type. So it's type. This is where you control the default opening type. Okay, if I click edit, the default is joist supported. Let's say that I want it to be rim supported. So I'm just going to select this one and select and okay. So now I'm changing the opening through the properties. So it applies it to both openings. Let's try if this works. Modular, copy members on all identical groups. Okay, so I just have to regenerate this. Okay, I would have to go into the panel, type, edit, rim supported, select, and okay. Just gonna copy it over here. And let's change the boundaries of the view. Okay, that's it. Let's try this now. So this time it did apply it. It applied the change that was in the properties to a fresh unit that didn't have anything. It didn't have the opening markers already. So it did apply it. If we decide to make a change over here in the properties, so properties again, type, let's change it to joist supported, select, and okay. Okay, let's see if we can match it. Let's try to match properties on all identical groups. So in this case, it worked. Okay, so just be careful when you're making changes to openings. It's best to make these changes from the properties and not by instance, because this way you have to change it one by one. Okay? And that's it for this one. The last thing I wanted to talk to you about is floor shop drawings. But actually, let's create this panel from scratch. Let's delete this one. If you select the group and you go to delete and delete panels, it's not going to work. You actually have to do this. So you do have to select a member of the panel, and then you would have to hit delete. So delete panel. And that's how you would delete it. Okay, I just want to show you how to apply. This one has sheathing, and I'm going to be creating a shop drawing for this one. So it's going to be panel 5. And if I apply the modular group to this other group, so copy members on all identical groups, and let's regenerate this. Okay, so you've noticed already that when we create new floor panels or ceiling panels or roof panels from one unit to another, we don't have identical names, right? We have different names every time, which is here it's floor panel 5. This one is floor panel 54. And unlike the wall module, where you're able to apply the same naming convention or the same name, you can't do that for the floor module group modular tool. So in this case, when you create a shop drawing, you're going to create one for the one that you're generating it from. It's going to have the same name. Okay. So to create a shop drawing, what you have to do is actually, let's try it here. If we select the group itself, and if we try to go to the floor manufacture tools, we're going to be using shop drawing V2. And I've already created my settings in the drawings manager. So I just want to show you what happens if I select shop drawings when I have a unit selected, like a group selected. It's actually not going to run the tool. So what you have to do is this. You have to select one member of the panel. And then if you run the tool, and I've already created settings, so I'm just going to hit OK. Okay, and it's done. If we go check here and I scroll down in my project browser, go all the way to sheets, I'll notice here that there was a sheet that has been populated for floor panel 5. So if I double click here, this is how the sheet is going to look like. I can make changes to this sheet if I like. So just keep in mind that although you can create a shop drawing from a group, from anything in a group, you do have to select the panel, and just keep in mind that the sheet is going to reflect that particular floor panel. Okay, so unlike the wall module, where the walls you can have the same naming for multiple panels, does not apply in the floor module. So that's it for this week's webinar. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.